take it away. It's all yours.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jason and team for organizing this. And it's a small group today, so feel free to pop in to ask any questions anytime. We are super passionate about this topic really because first-party data and privacy and everything has been such a big topic these days, and especially when it comes to managing customer data. Every company has at least one website, if not more, right? So just the ability to address this third-party data problems is something that we get asked a lot. So before we go into the session, I'll just do a very quick introduction of myself. My name is Quinn. I work with Meiro since the very early days. So that was since we were kind of a data integration solution that gradually evolved into becoming, the CDP, a data-first CDP. So I've always been, involved in a lot of the data integration and CDP implementation projects with our clients, and managing the client portfolio, especially in APAC. And aside from that, I also volunteer for She Loves Data. So She Loves Data is our our arm of education to not only women, but basically for everyone to go into the area of data, digital analytics. So that's our way of kind of increasing the diversity in the field of data and digital analytics in all industries, really. So that's where I spend the most of my time for these two organizations. And going back to the topic of today, how does the CDP actually help to solve the third-party CDP problem? So let's first start with what is actually the problem, right? I guess we are hearing so much by now, the death of cookies and the cookies apocalypse. I don't think you can find a more dramatic headline on this, right? The cookies apocalypse. What is it really? Now, essentially, this refers to the fact that most of the browsers are limiting third-party cookies. So cookies, they are not going away, right? They are not going to disappear overnight. But the limitation refers to the expiry of these cookies and specifically to third-party cookies. So let's break that down, shall we? I will start with, and I just want to make sure that we are on the same page. So I will start with a very simple kind of explanation around cookies. Of course, it's a little bit more complex in real life than that, but essentially, a cookies is generated when a user comes to visit a website, right, and then starts browsing. Now, the website server actually sends a small piece of information, which is a text file, to your the server will send it to the browser, which is then saved in the user computer. And originally, this actually contains just information around your preferences, like language preference, and if you add something into cart, so that the next time when you come back to the site, essentially this information is sent back to the browser, so that the experience that you see the last time, if you have already logged in or if you have already chosen the preferred language, it shows up the same way again. So essentially, these cookies are sent to the server, and this is just an information to personalize the web experience for the user. So over the year, it has just gotten so complex because there are different parties sending the cookies and logging different things, right? So essentially, what's important to understand here is that there is a distinction between first and third party cookies around how they are created, right? The first party cookies are set by a website that you're visiting directly versus the third party cookies, which are created by a third party server. So let's say my company's website is Meiro.io, and Jason, you come to our website. So that is something that is a transaction that is happening between Jason and Meiro.io, right? So Meiro.io is the owner of the website, and as well, we are also owning the relationship with you. So any Google Pixel or Facebook Pixel would be a third party to this transaction, and therefore, if they are also dropping a tracking pixel on the website, or in other words, a cookie on the website to track your behavior, then they are a third party cookies, right? So that's a key distinction really of how it's being set up. And from a browser's perspective, this is significant because the third-party trackers are not only tracking you, Jason, your activity on Meiro domain, but also what happens after that. So let's say you leave the Meiro domain and you go to our competitor site, right? Because you're doing research. So then they are as well, if they have a tracker there, they are as well tracking that. And what they can deduce from that interactions that you have is that Jason is in the CDP buyer market, right? And so next time, if anyone who wants to target an advertising message to somebody who's tagged as a CDP buyer, then Jason, you are one target, right? So that is very different from Meiro's first-party cookies that we set on our side, where the moment that you leave our website, we don't see what else you do, right? So from a browser's perspective, those are different. And therefore, there's a difference in terms of the browser support. Now, the third-party cookies are expired typically between daily to 7 days. In some settings, still about 30 days, but in general, it's quite limited, right? Versus the browser support that you have in the first-party cookies, which are typically, if set up correctly, can be up to 2 years. And this is significant because if we look at the whole journey of the user from discovery to consideration to actually doing some research, for most of the products, it's a little bit more than 7 days, right? Unless you are a very impulse shopper. So having a longer cookies shelf life not only allows you to be able to observe your consumer and their behavior for a longer time, so you can have opportunities to personalize the experience and to build a relationship and nurture that web visitor. But as well, it allows you to kind of look at these are all the third-party cookies associated with them. So in case we need to retarget them, all of the third-party cookies that are associated with them. So that also helps. Okay, so if we are not having any first-party cookie setting, and this is where the problem really is about, right? Is that it was started. We were chatting a little bit before the recording, but the whole narrative really started with Safari being the leader in the narrative around privacy and consumer protection, and Safari was the first one to limit this cookie exploration, and then that was then followed by a few smaller browsers. But when Chrome finally announced that they would also stop the support and limit the cookies on Chrome browsers, then we know it's real, because that affects anywhere between 70 to 90% of the browser market in most markets, right? So this is going to have a huge impact on the industry. Of course, with Chrome, it took them a long time because a lot of their business was still dependent on having this third-party tracking as a core of what they offer to the business around the ability to target and to do advertising. But ultimately, this is going to happen by 2023, which is just next year. So it's really coming, right? So at the end of the day, these are a lot of technical talks around how cookies work and how the limitations are going to be applied. Now, if you're a marketer or if you are any organizations that have a website, have some digital assets, and have customers, then this is going to be important. What does it mean for marketers? The most immediate impact that we are going to see is that it is not possible to observe users' behaviors over a longer period of time, like we said before. So from the browser's perspective, because the cookies expire every, let's say, 7 days or so, every time an actual human being come back to the website, and if the same user comes back to the website, essentially after 7 days, they look like a new person from the browser's perspective because they are assigned a new cookie ID, right? So if we are looking at understanding the user's behavior over time, it's not really possible. And that also means that suddenly you are going to have artificially a lot of higher unique views count of the viewers on the website. But in fact, these are just potentially returning visitors who are assigned new cookie IDs. So there's major impact in that in terms of performance measurement, understanding how many users we really have and how many repeat users do we have, which pieces of content are really performing on the site, because those numbers are just not accurate anymore, right? And as well, for any organizations that have so far been relying on targeting based on third-party audience, that means sending your audience to Facebook and Google and say, hey, find all the people in this bucket of let's say female 25 to 35 who are enthusiastic about traveling, right? So these targeting or targeted audiences will become gradually less and less accurate, just simply because, again, these third party are not going to be able to really track people across the site in a very accurate way. So those are the immediate impacts.
Quinn, a quick question.
Yeah.
With the point number 2, major issue in performance measurement, e.g. inaccurate count of unique views, that's not, however, for your own website, is it? When it's your first party cookie, your own, then you're still going to have that 2-year. Yeah. This is really only for the third party, isn't it?
This is if you don't do anything different, if you don't look at first party, if you just, if you are still relying on third party and you don't change anything, you're right.
And when you say inaccurate count of unique views, that would be unique views of websites elsewhere, not your own website, sort of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Sorry, maybe I should say unique viewers or unique visitors. Sorry, that's
I understood.
Visitors, yeah.
No, I understood what you meant by unique views, that you mean visitors. I'm just thinking of, so on your own website, you'll still have an accurate view of the unique visitors. That's okay with your first party cookie. But what you're saying is when someone goes elsewhere and you're trying to say, this person using my third party cookie who's visited my competitor, and I see 10 unique views over 3 weeks, I can't be sure if that is a different person or the same person anymore. That's the point of that, correct?
Correct. So any time range that is that you want to look at, repeated view that is longer than the cookie expiry, that number is not going to be accurate anymore. You're right. Okay. So given that we have established the issue and the problem, now, what is a marketer's solution for a cookieless world? And we have alluded to this already since the beginning, which is essentially we need to, for all brands that has a website that has some digital property, you have to start your first party cookies repository, right? And this essentially means that you're collecting your own visiting or browsing behavior on the website, and you are actually collecting that data. You are storing that under your own domain. So from the browser's perspective, there is a legitimate use case here, and the expiry can be up to 2 years. If you look at the setting here, where we can see that on Chrome itself, and this was done in early 2021, something like first April 2021. So we can really see that with the third-party cookies from Google, it's 24 hours expiry, so it's really nothing. Whereas if you have a first-party cookies setting, it's up to 2 years. So again, it really allows us to keep track of the consumer behavior on the site.
So Quinn, a quick question around that one, just to make sure I've understood it correctly. When you say Google's cookie, so on the websites that I have, I use Google Analytics for all of them. and I use
Mm-hmm.
Google Analytics to get to cookie people with Google
Mm-hmm.
Analytics, and I track that. You're saying, is that a third-party cookie, or is that my first-party cookie going by Google Analytics?
So when you are using, so when Google is putting Pixel on your website, that's a third-party cookies tracking
Okay, so when I
setting, right?
let's say concretely, when I go to WordPress and I add
Mm-hmm.
the Google Analytics tag to my header on all the different
Mm-hmm.
pages, and then it then can track people with a cookie, that's a third-party cookie. So effectively, I need to come up with my own software and write my own software to now actually cookie people and track them, because now if I'm using Google Analytics to track unique visitors over more than a week, that's rubbish.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So from the browser's perspective, right, the browser is looking at, okay, what is the website domain? The website domain, let's say you come to our website, it is Meiro.io. Now, what is the domain or the address of the site that is collecting the data? If it is Google, it's probably stored in, I'm imagining this, but all of this cookie data is actually stored in something like cookies.google.com or cookie.google.storage. So two different domains clearly does not belong to the same entity. So for all intent and purposes, that is a third-party setting. So the only way to make it first-party is when you are actually storing, you have the storage, you create that database that is storing that that browsing behavior, and all of that data that is that SDK or events tracker is pointing towards exactly that storage that has the same domain as your website. So that's how we have that setting. Yep. Right. So here the domain for us is Meiro.io.
Yep. No, that makes sense. Thanks for the explanation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no worries. So and that's a technical kind of details that it's a little bit technical, but it really matters when it comes to what is first and third parties and how the browsers deal with that, right? And the important thing here is with Google's cookies expiring for a short period of time, essentially what that means is that for the same site, if I'm going to the website as one individual person on 3 different days, I'm going to be associated with 3 different IDs on Google, right? But if I have a more persistent cookie, which is Meiro cookie over here, I still can be connected back to the same unified profile. And that matters when we want to do any retargeting, any re-engagement with the customer, is that one persistent profile that is your first party cookie is going to act as the string that is connecting all these disjointed IDs. So that allows you to use that primary IDs and with highest longevity and and continue to collect all of these other IDs, so you can still send back the user from a first party perspective. You can still send it back to to the different platforms that you need to re-engage with. So be if it's Google Ads, DV360, we can send back, hey Google, for this person that I have in my database, I have 3 Google client ID associated with them. Please re-engage with this person in whichever IDs that you still have connection with, right? So that's how we are able to still maintain the ability to connect with the consumer and re-engaging, reactivating them in multiple platforms.
So while we are on this, so what is stopping, or is Google not going to start creating the first party date, sort of the first party cookie for everyone?
The concept itself of first party cookie is you have to be collecting data on domains that you own. So unless Google is going to own everyone's domain, right, it's not going to be, it's not going to happen.
What I meant is, like, wouldn't Google start going down the route of what you guys are doing at the Meiro, where they start offering some piece of software that, yes, Google is not owning my domain, but they are effectively replicating what you guys are doing to allow me to be able to install the first party cookie to be able to replicate all these things?
So 2 things to that. Number one is that Google's technically nothing is stopping them from doing that. If we can do it, obviously Google can do it. So that's just the ability to create an SDK that tracks all the web activities and store it in a domain that you own, right? So essentially, if Google can come in and say, we have this SDK. If you create a server, if you own that server, you also own your domain, and you use our SDK, it goes back to your and that data goes back to your domain that you own. So technically, nothing stops them from offering that service. However, if you think about the business model for Google, it's about advertising. It's about tracking all the websites. It's about tracking consumer from one site to another. So there is no incentive with helping individual website owners to track their own web users if they don't have the ability to as well view and track these users across the site. So if Google simply just know, Jason, what you do in one website, their audience, they are not going to be able to build such a powerful audience as they have right now. So there is no commercial incentive in actually going into that business. So again, nothing stops them technically. It's all about where the money is and where their their business model is, which is advertising, right?
Absolutely.
And Quinn, just oh sorry, go for it, Jason.
I was just going to say, I like how the way she put it, like where the money is. That makes sense. That explains 99% of the things in the world.
Well, I will use that line. So basically, if I don't know how to answer the question, I'm just like, just look at where the money is.
So Quinn, another quick question, just to make sure I've understood it correctly, is the only way this is going to work with you providing that data to Google so we can serve up ads where they appear elsewhere, is you have to provide both the Google cookie and your own cookie. You can't just provide your cookie, obviously. If you don't provide their cookie ID, they can't link the two, correct or not?
Not correct. You don't need to provide your own cookies. So if you look at this, let's say your own first-party cookies, right? Outside of your environment, it basically means nothing, right? Google is not going to recognize it. Facebook is not going to recognize it. So its job is to be one persistent ID. So under this one ID, I have 3 Facebook Pixel ID. I have, let's say, 5 cookies of Google client cookies. So your internal cookies, your primary cookie ID, allows you to build your first party audience because you know these people, right? So if you are building, your customer base.
I get what you're saying. Right? No, I totally understand. Yeah. My question would be, is if, let's say you use a Facebook cookie, when they go back to Facebook and you want to remarket to them and it's on the Facebook property, do you then need to provide them with the Facebook cookie ID and your cookie ID? Because Facebook knows who that person is on their platform. You can't because you're a third party, but you've got locally on your persistent cookie that will last 2 years. You can give to Facebook both at once and say, hey, Facebook, my cookie won't persist on yours, but this cookie I'm giving you should because it's your platform, and vice versa. Does that work or not?
Correct. So you will give Facebook either a Facebook cookie or phone, email, device ID, names, as many as you can. Yeah. So for each of these platforms, there is a list of things that they would accept to be able to build an audience. The more you have, the merrier.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Oh, I feel like a lecturer today. So many questions, but it's good. It's good. It means that it's something that really resonates. So where were we? Yeah. So empowering us to be able to recognize our consumer on our first party property, but as well to be able to connect all of those disjointed. So going back from the topic of first party cookie into really CDP, because first party cookie repository is really just a part of that CDP, right? So ultimate goal for us here is being able to kind of view and track and follow the entire customer journey, regardless of the channel they are in, whether they are served some ads, then they go to your property, purchase something, go to mobile app. So all of that are data that we can collect and we can join back together to build a single view of the customer. So that's what the CDP is all about. So again, the solution that we build with our clients, ultimately it's revolving around that. So keeping in mind the concept of cookies and how, you know, disjointed it would be to rely on third-party cookies, I just have a few solutions or example case studies around the solution that we built with our clients, just to illustrate that kind of use case a little bit more. So we go back to just one point here, which is we go back to the essential of a CDP. I think we were mentioning earlier that, you know, there are still some questions around, you know, what is how is it different from, let's say, DMP, CRM? And I think ultimately, what is important for a CDP platform to be able to handle uniquely better than any other platform that collects customer data is these three things. Number one is data integration. So, you know, ability to work with both offline and online sources seamlessly, right, with very low code implementation is going to be important. So imagine that, I don't know about your team, but for a lot of our clients, you know, they would experiment, they would try a new marketing tool, run some campaigns, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, we want to be able to plug it out, use something else. Or, you know, the team actually outgrows a particular tool and you need to adopt a new one, right? You don't want it to cost you an arm and a leg just to be able to, you know, still keep your customer data and work with a new tool. You want to be able to have a very seamless integration, and we support that for the client because of the number of, you know, integrated and native connectors there, right? So, and it's also relating to the earlier point of, let's say, pushing an audience that you have in your database to Facebook and Google, right? Or any other platform that you are activating in. Your platform, your CDP platform should be able to natively send the exact amount of information that is required by these end platforms so that you can activate, right? So if Facebook is accepting only Facebook ID and phone and email and device ID, let's say, then, you know, that your destination should be able to handle that. Or, for example, we have now a lot of our clients are moving into GA4. If you haven't heard, you know, the Universal Analytics property from Google is going to be deprecated and moved to GA4. So again, it's non-negotiable. It's going to be, UA is going to be stopped, you know, supported soon. So you have to move to GA4, right? And you want to be able from one day to another to migrate and to immediately build segments in GA4 and push your segment from CDP to GA4 without, you know, costing you a lot of money just for that migration. So that's where the data integration capability comes in. Second part we have talked a lot about, it's about first-party data collection. So I wouldn't spend more time on that. But the third one is also super important, which is identity resolution. And here I don't mean email matching, right? I don't mean that, oh, these two people has the same email, so they are probably the same person, so let's match them into a, you know, a single view. Now, identity resolution is really about being able to handle very diverse types of IDs that recognizes an individual person. So regardless of, you know, where you are, let's say if you are active, if you are interacting in a mobile phone, you know, an app, then there's a device ID. If it's, you know, Wi-Fi, sometimes you would need to provide some phone number or email address to log in Wi-Fi, right? There's customer rating, there's transaction. So there's a lot of different types of IDs, you know, loyalty number, customer number, email, phone number that can identify a person. And an identity resolution algorithm should be able to handle all of that. Plus being able to also look at the customer view from various layers. Like imagine that if we have a B2B business where, you know, you are still dealing with individual persons, right? But from an accounts perspective, you need to manage by account. So if you can only, you know, you know that your account is in, you know, a particular stage where you have talked to person one, who is the decision maker, and person two, who is procurement, for example. So at the same time, you're dealing with individual people and you are dealing with the account. So that are also, you know, different levels of identity resolution that a CDP should be able to handle, right? So that's what a real CDP should be in a unique position to do over other tools in the marketing platform, which is exactly why they are complementary, right? None of them would replace each other, really. They are complementary. So that's what we were referring to when it comes to identity resolution. So with that being said, right, it's really about delivering the value across the customer journey. So I'll just go into 3 examples of our actual customers where a CDP delivers value, and especially playing into the first party data kind of challenges. Okay. The first one is a customer in the financial services. So this is our Indonesian development client. We worked with them since a very early day. And the typical process for leads on the website is that someone goes to the website. They are lucky if this person research for some product and then would fill in some form like, I'm interested in this new credit card, contact me, right? So that's where the interest is pretty high already. So these leads are sent directly to the to the team that's handling all the leads, and that's where they will be contacting this customer. Now, the first thing that we did after collecting the first party data on the website is also connecting that with the rest of the system, connect that with CRM, internal databases, the master data management, so that we can see as well the customers who are already existing customers. So there's a difference between coming to a lead and saying that, hey, thank you for your interest and these are our offers, and then coming to them and say, thank you for your interest. We know that you are our existing customers, you have great credit, so we would like to offer you this credit card with very let's say very favorable rates, right? So that's one way to enrich the leads. But beyond that, they are now also able to look at the browsing behavior on the website and look at, hey, if someone is researching for mortgage for the past 3 months, and looking at the same type of content, then we know they're in the market for researching for a particular product, and we can approach them even if they are anonymous. Okay, so that's the benefit where we are seeing better cost per result, better engagement rate, better quality of leads, and therefore closure rate is actually higher as well. So that's for the bank in Indonesia. Second example would be around the middle part of engagement. So this is always tricky, right? Because once the customer already purchased from you, so then what, right? If we are not doing anything for engagement, if we are not doing any recommendations, so then that's money being left on the table. So what we do with this particular European client in e-commerce and retail is that we are looking at 3 points of behavioral data. One is just a view, right? Even if they come back to the site, they are not logging in, they are just viewing something. That's recommendation based on product views and category views. The second point of recommendation is based on past purchase. So if someone comes to the website, we know they already have purchased something in the past, we can recommend something similar or something that's complementary, accessories to that product. And then the third one would be customers similar to you are purchasing this product. So here are some recommendations. So again, you do not need PIR, you do not need the customer to already log in and have some sort of transaction to be able to give them a more personalized offer or recommendations in this case.
So Quinn, can you dig into that one a little bit? Because I think one of the most powerful things that just doesn't get talked about enough in marketing, in fact, it is, in my eyes, one of the be-all and end-alls, are lookalike audiences. Yeah. So you've got the audiences that you know are valuable and work well. Finding similar audiences is the key to low-cost, high-quality acquisitions. Just explain to me a bit how you do that lookalike, where these people, how are you finding that they're similar there that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so when we talk about lookalike audience, actually there are kind of 2 areas that we want to talk about. So here, when we talk about customers like you, for us, this is in our full database of customers for whom we have we have their behaviors around not only transactions, but also their browsing behavior. So this is people that already we capture on our digital assets. So we are looking at what they search for, where they are region-wise. So that's what I'm referring to when it comes to this lookalike audience. So there's another area, right? There's another area where you are doing prospecting, let's say with the Google and Facebook, where you are sending, let's say, your best customers, the highest value customers, and sending to them and say, hey, Facebook and Google, go out and look for 10,000 people who looks like this. That's another option, which again, think back about the quality of the third-party cookies, which has an impact on this quality of the lookalike audience.
And so 2 points that like your thinking is that, so you've got your first party cookie database and in there who's transacted. So from your own database, you create from your own database lookalike. It's not leveraging a Facebook or a Google in that first instance. But then what you can do, and I haven't quite understood this one properly, is that you can provide Google and Facebook. So like you said before, you need to provide email address and lots of data to say, hey, look, this is a legit person. Or are you saying you can actually provide this cookie information and they'll accept that as well?
If you are sending cookies, only Google or Facebook's cookies respectively. So again, what you want to do is in your own platform, in your own CDP platform, right? You are creating an audience, let's say people who, the top 10% of spenders, right? So these are people I want to look for. Now, the CDP platform should be able to take that audience, and the moment that I say, I want to activate in Facebook, it will only extract the IDs that are relevant to Facebook, being Facebook ID, phone number, device ID. But then if I'm saying that, hey, I want to activate in Google, then another set of IDs will be extracted, right? And ideally, you want to be able to see as well, if I want to activate in Facebook, I have a bigger audience. I have more data about these people. I have more Facebook cookies. So maybe I should actually activate in Facebook instead of Google. So your CDP should be able to do that for you, which is to look at the audience respectively.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good question. So so that's for, in this perspective, we are looking for lookalike audience or customers like you in a more layman way, from their browsing behavior. People who search for the similar things, people who are in your region, and so on, to provide recommendation accordingly. And then finally, another way that we also leverage on this information is around cart recovery of cart abandonment. So, I'm sure you have been in similar scenarios where you are putting some things on the cart, and for various reasons, you will be abandoning that cart, right? Sometimes you're not ready. Sometimes you are really just leaving it there and maybe rethinking about it, waiting for the price to drop, right? And people don't always log in. So sometimes it's really just an anonymous browser abandoning the cart. So what you want to be able to do is to capture the market of people who are more or less ready to buy, maybe waiting for a better offer, maybe just needed to have a little bit of nudge, right? And when they come back next time, even if they haven't logged in, hey, Jason, this is what, this you haven't completed. Can we sweeten the deal with a 20% discount vouchers?
That is
and
exactly
with those kind of,
doing,
does it work?
right?
It
that
works,
is what
right?
I do.
Yeah. So for that, we actually see a very significant uplift for our client, based on just revenue that would otherwise have been lost because people abandon cart. And essentially, this is something that you can do both with your first party and known customers. So obviously, with first party, typically you have to reactivate them on the website the next time that they come back, right? But if these people, if we have recognized them in other instances before, where you can connect them already with some email or some platform, some mobile, then you can even send mobile ad push. So the key is really to be able to meet your consumer where they are. So those are the examples. I mean, ultimately, I hope this was helpful and informational. The two of us here, I am Quinn, and I have my colleague Holger, who is responsible for Australia sales. So if you would like to reach out, ask questions, please, you have our contact here, so please reach out.
Could you
let me know if you have further questions.
Absolutely. Could you send the deck through, Quinn? I think it's really useful. It'd be good to have some conversations
Absolutely.
on my end with the marketing team around that one. So if you could send that through, I've connected with you and Holger on LinkedIn. I don't know if it's easiest on LinkedIn or if I just
Absolutely
send you an email or something, or what's best.
I think if Queen just send it to Evan on LinkedIn or whatever email, but if you send it to me, and I will get link to send out to everyone on the group as well.
Yeah.
I'm also more than happy, to come up to Brisbane and catch up. Jason, also with you might be a good reason to catch up, if there was something that resonated with you guys and you want to have further discussions, always.
Sounds good. So Holger is based in Gold Coast, Evan. So
Okay.
it's pretty easy to catch up. I was gonna say, I think that was a really, really good presentation. I think it certainly changed quite a few of my understanding and perspective about the CDP. It seems like whatever that I understood, that you just helped me to throw it out into the bin. So I think that but I think that was a good presentation. The couple of things that I probably would start, Evan, feel free to jump in to ask questions anytime, and likewise same for you, Levin. I think the first thing that I probably would say that I find slightly different to the expectation when you were saying, like if we were to look at the title itself, they say how CDP is going to solve the third-party cookies problem. So that whole thing, I understand that. But I think a lot of things that you talk about in there is the first-party cookie. What I feel like a lot of the discussion in the market, or a lot of the discussion that I heard or that I have had is the first-party data. People are going to focus on a lot more on the first-party data, making sure that they are collecting the data, not necessarily just only when they become a customer, not necessarily only when they are getting a card or putting things in the cart or trying to make sure that they log in, but they are going to find more way to make sure that people are logging in, even though they are just browsing things, just different ways to collect the data. Whereas what you are talking about is the first-party cookie. So I think that is really stand out that I wasn't expecting. To that extent, I feel like, wouldn't it be more appropriate if you were trying to highlight your strength where you are going to build a first-party cookie, rather than trying to say, I'm going to build you the CDP with first-party data?
I think absolutely. I think those two, for me, it goes hand in hand, right? So for our customers who are hearing about this and asking us, so what do we do? And we are always kind of the first step is always to start building your first party cookies repository. That's the first step that you want to do to get the foundation there. And then we get into the discussion around, hey, so how are you going to, even with the first party cookies, these are still anonymous, right? Just because you are actually seeing this paper for a longer period of time, these are still anonymous. So how are we going to drive this relationship building with these people? How are we going to incentivize people to actually, log in, create some accounts with you even before they purchase, right? Are there valuable content and offers that we can have just behind a login? So that's the next step. And then, how are we going to connect all of that together? So I feel like, setting the first party cookies foundation is the first step. And then whatever else in terms of moving people along that, going from anonymous to become first party data of known people, that would be, strategically the next step.
So do you find it easier to sell it on the concept of first party cookie, or do you find it easier to sell on the concept of first party data?
Depends on who we talk to, really, and who we are for some people it doesn't seem to be that there is a difference because they are starting with so little data that it doesn't seem to have a kind of a difference in their mind. So it really depends on who we talk to. Sometimes we don't even start with this conversation because, you know, the business value is derived somewhere else. So we usually start with, you know, what is the challenge that you are having in terms of engagement and driving business value with your customers and improving customer experience. And then we go into the discussion of, is it, you know, problems around first party cookies setup, or is it something else? Yeah.
Right. So whereas with the offline data, that is where pretty much it's just the first party data collection with the POS and the physical machine, etc. And then through the data integration that send it back to the CDP of the Meiro. That is not much. Would that be correct to describe the offline data and the integration and bring it back to the CDP?
Yes, absolutely. So typically we see offline data as, you know, let's say retail POS transactional data in your store, but, you know, also it could be databases that sit somewhere else. And essentially it's about being able to, you know, set up that integration and have that come back to the CDP as much as possible and as fast as possible, right? And the other piece is, what is the kind of information and data that you are collecting from this offline data? Or sometimes it's even loyalty system, right? So when someone signs up for a loyalty card. So it goes back to the question of what are you collecting, and are you making, or are you creating the connection between this offline data and the rest of your database? So, you know, even if we have like transaction data, but if you are not storing any thing like email, phone number, or some kind of customer ID, we are still not able to kind of integrate that back into building the single view. So then the effort has to be made by the brand to create that connection, of course.
Which of the industry has the highest rate of adoption so far?
Based on the industries that we work with, I would say, you know, obviously e-commerce is, they are kind of in a position that's a little bit easier to do because, you know, already by default, you know, a lot of them have website, mobile, and when it comes to transaction, you know, people has an incentive to put in, you know, whatever actual information that they have. So e-commerce is slightly more advanced in that aspect. Banking is interesting because there's so much push into digital banking and you know pushing that consumer journey in omni-channel. So banking also has a huge incentive to do that, but it's a little bit more challenging just because of the requirement around where the data is stored and managed. So that's a little bit more challenging in that aspect, but there's a lot of money put into that to set up such a system.
Good stuff.
Well, thank you very much, Quinn. I really enjoyed this. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really good presentation. Unfortunately, I have to go, but I really enjoyed it. And I have connected with both you on LinkedIn, so either shoot me over LinkedIn and we'll keep chatting or whatever.
Thanks, Evan. Thanks, Evan.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.